This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ben Forstag, Becky Thomas, and Jessica Black from the Mac's List team. This week, we're talking about the secret to career success. Pay it forward. For some people, job offers seem to happen magically. For others, a job search is a long and sometimes painful process. There's a reason this is so, says this week's guest expert, Tony Restell. He's found that the people who return favors by helping others enjoy the most career success. Tony will explain how paying it forward can help you get your next job or promotion. He and I talk later in the show. The idea that job hunting means giving as well as asking for help might surprise some listeners. And many job seekers also don't understand how much they have to offer. Ben has found several examples of the difference supporting others looking for work can make to the success of your own job search. He tells us more in a moment. What strategies work best for overcoming age discrimination in the workplace? That's our listener question of the week. It comes from Don Fitchett of Portland, Oregon. Becky shares her advice shortly. As always, let's start by checking in with the Mac's List team. Every week, Ben is out there searching the nooks and crannies of the internet, and he looks for websites, books, and tools you can use in your job search and your career. So, Ben, what have you uncovered for our listeners this week?
So this week, when I saw the topic of the show, which is paying it forward, it reminded me of episode 100, our live episode, and we had a job seeker segment of the show. And one of those job seekers was Lisa Kislingberry Anderson, who is a known commodity here at Mac's List. She's helped out on our blog. Friend of the show, yes. And she said something that's kind of stuck with me since that show, which was she said one of the benefits actually of her job search has been the realization that this is a collaborative thing. You're not competing with other job seekers, right? That you can work together, and this is a way to form relationships and contacts and help each other in this process. And that really stuck with me because I think so much of the time we think about the job search as a competition, right? That I'm up against 100 other job seekers and I have to beat them. And in some respects, that's true because with any single job opening, right, it's a zero-sum game. One person's going to win and everyone else is going to lose. But job searches in general, right? They don't have to be this combative, you against the world approach. And there's a lot of value to helping out other people who are in similar situations. And really what you give is what you get back. So thinking about that and doing some research, I found this really interesting article on HuffPost. It's by a guy named Patrick Richard. And it's called Losing Job Search Momentum, Why You Should Help Others First. And again, it just gets at this idea of competition versus collaboration. And he says, helping others to find work can boost your own sense of self-worth, giving you the motivation to barrel on with your own job hunt. So before I go into what Richard says in detail here, just kind of curious of the folks here in the room, have you ever participated in kind of a collaborative job search practice? I never have, I'll admit. I feel absolutely. Like job searching is always kind of something I do on my own.
Really?
Yeah.
Not
for my own benefit, probably.
No, I feel like in sort of different senses, but I've always used the people that I know and they've leaned on me when they need me, whatever, anytime somebody is in need of a new opportunity and they'll float it out into the network and I'll scope for them, I'll keep an eye out. And I feel like that just creates a sense of everybody's helping each other. And I mean, it can be competitive and I don't know. It's just it feels so much better to be in that sense of we're helping each other than to be to feel isolated and to feel like it's me against the world. Yeah. I've always felt a lot better about my sort of career development, job search experience when I'm like giving to others, and you get what you give. Like, that's so true. I feel like we say that all the time, but it really is, especially in this space.
Yeah, when you know other people are watching out for you and you're watching out for them.
Yeah.
And everybody wins that way.
Right.
And I've certainly been part of job search groups or just informal. I've had informal job search buddies that I checked in with.
Yeah,
personally when I was
accountability
going
too
through
is always
research.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should just clarify here. I mean, if you listen to our show at all, we talk about like going out and getting other people to help you with your job search. This specifically is asking other job seekers to help you with your job search. So you're not going out and doing informational interviews with like established professionals or people who already have your dream job. This is going to other people who are in your exact same situation to find support.
And I know that Lisa, who we referenced before, our friend of the podcast and friend of Max List, did just that. She created a sort of job search support group almost of
great.
everyone who is looking for a job getting together on a regular basis and kind of sharing resources and sharing support and all of that stuff, and it's really beneficial.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that Patrick Richards suggested in this article. None of these things are like earth-shattering or you're going to become the Volunteer of the Year award or anything like that. They're like really relatively modest things that you could do that could really help you and other people out in their job search. So it's things like sharing job search stories and advice, brainstorming creative job search practices, offering motivation and accountability, or maybe even starting a local group for job seekers, kind of like what Lisa did.
Yeah.
And, to bring this whole thing in full circle, we did an event last week on communications jobs here in Portland. And I can't remember what panelist it was. I think it might have been...
I bet it was Jess Colombo.
Was it Jess Colombo?
She's always on that sort of like help your network, and she's great at it.
Well, one of the things she said was, in your job search, you're going to find a lot of jobs, and you need to really find the one that's perfect for you. And when you find one that isn't perfect for you but might be perfect for someone else, pass it along.
Share it.
Yeah,
share it with other
strategically,
people.
right? Like you know what people are looking for, so you can like pick someone out and be like, "Hey, I thought of you for this opportunity," and like people appreciate that so much.
Yeah, this sounds exactly like what you were talking about in our job search group. Yeah. So I thought this was really, really powerful and inspiring. If you want to check it out, again, it's called Losing Job Search Momentum, Why You Should Help Others First. It's on Huffington Post. And as always, we'll have the full link in the show notes.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Ben. And if you've got a suggestion for Ben, he would love to hear from you. His address is easy to remember. It's ben@maxlist.org. Now let's turn to you, our listeners, and Becky is here to answer one of your questions. Becky, what's in the Max List mailbag this week?
So Don Fitchett submitted this question from Portland, Oregon. So let's take a listen.
Hey, my name is Don Fitchett, and my question is strategies dealing with age discrimination.
All right. Thanks, Don, for that question. As I was sort of preparing to answer your question, I felt a little bit like, I wonder what situation Don is in. He's just asking for general strategies to deal with age discrimination. So I thought I'd just give an overview of sort of what age discrimination looks like for a job seeker and give some advice that could help. So we talk a lot about age discrimination. A lot of older workers are sort of in this situation where they think they might be, dealing with ageism, whether they're looking for a job or in their current workplace. And when we talk about age discrimination, so there is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967, and it's really sort of a broad protection, protects applicants and employees who are over 40 years of age, or 40 and older, from discrimination on all sorts of basis, in the basis of age in hiring, promotion, discharge, compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment. So it's a really broad protection, and there's been a lot of discussion about how hard it is to prove age discrimination. A lot of times this discrimination is really subtle, and employers may be discriminating either unconsciously or they're at least savvy enough to not say it outright, like, oh yeah, I didn't give you that promotion because I think you're too old or something. It's a lot more sort of insidious. which is really unfortunate because there's been lots of surveys that like more than half of people have reported seeing it in the workplace, and it's definitely something that's out there and can be really hard to prove and to like get a case through court, things like that. Also, like most folks don't want to go through that process of suing their employer or suing someone that they interviewed with. And so a lot of the advice that's shared can be a little bit harder for older job seekers to swallow because it feels like the onus is on you as the older job seeker to show that you're not, fitting those stereotypes. And it can be hard to really like understand like why is it on me? I'm just trying to like get through, my career, and why do I have to do anything different compared to people who are younger than me? But it's really like you have to sort of assume that the people you're interacting with might have some ageist mindsets, and it's up to you to show them that you don't fit that mold. A lot of those sort of tired stereotypes about older people, like you're tired, you're afraid of change, you might not want to sort of learn new things, or you're used to outdated practices and things like that. So I think the best thing for you to do as a professional who's, over 40, or older, whatever, wherever you're at, is really to just put your best foot forward in all your interactions around your career. So, anytime you're approaching some opportunity in your career, whether you're at a networking event, you're at an informational interview, just be super confident and enthusiastic and over-communicate your goals and your plans for your career and the fact that you've got a lot that you're working towards and you're open to new change and learning new things and all of that. I think that's really going to be like the most effective way to address those stereotypes and that discrimination. I think it's really just about sort of like knowing yourself and knowing what stereotypes might be out there and just taking an extra step to squash those in how people see you. So
yeah, I like that advice, and I know that we published in the past a short primer about how to deal with ageism during a job interview, and we should definitely include that in the show notes.
Okay, we'll include a link in the show notes for you, Don.
Yeah, and I would just add, every job seeker out there is fighting against the stereotypes that exist about them, no matter who they are, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're old or young, whether you're a white person or a person of color. Like there are these stereotypes that float out there. Some of them are benign, some of them are malicious, but they exist out there. And part of the challenge is like to overcome that. And it does put a lot of the onus on the job seeker to do that. And so, your strategy or the tack you have to take here is like you need to know what those negative stereotypes might be about who you are. Right. And when we're talking about older job seekers, it's, isn't up to date with technology, won't work well with younger managers.
Requires too much money.
Looking for a place to coast until retirement.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, there's probably like half a dozen of these like big ones that employers have. They're never going to say anything about it.
Right.
It's going to be like in the back of their mind, and your challenge is to get out ahead of the curve with those and say why that doesn't apply to you. And I there's a cliche, right? You're only as old as you act. And I think it's completely true when it comes to a job search because, if you can get out ahead of that, the employer will think like, I don't want to hire an old person, but Becky's not old. Becky doesn't act like an old person. Becky acts like a millennial or something else because she's up to date with technology. Becky's like, 30 now? So you're definitely not old.
I don't think it's her supervisor. We should be talking about her age.
But I mean, I think that's the point. And this exists for everyone, not just older job seekers.
Yeah, for sure. That's true.
Good. All right. Well, excellent advice, Becky. And we appreciate the question, Don. If you've got a question for the show, please write to Becky. You can reach her. Her address is becky@maxlist.org. Or you can call the listener line, and that number is area code 716-JOB-TALK. Or send us a message on Facebook. And if we use your question on the show, we'll send you a copy of our new book, Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. We'll be back in a moment, and when we return, I'll talk with this week's guest expert, Tony Restell, about the secret of career success, paying it forward. let's turn to this week's guest expert, Tony Restell. Tony Restell is the founder of Social Hire. It's a specialist agency that helps recruitment teams leverage social media. Previously, Tony built and sold a successful job board business in the United Kingdom. He's a guest speaker at leading business schools across Europe and a published author. He joins us today from the outskirts of Portsmouth, just south of London. Tony, thanks for being on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, our topic this week, Tony, is the secret of career success. And you come to this topic after a long experience seeing a lot of different job seekers over the years. And you've you have found that they often fall into two kinds of job seekers, don't you, Tony?
That's absolutely right. And it's not just job seekers, it's business peoples, professionals more broadly on social media. You've got those who turn to social media in their hour of need, in their hour of desperation, and reach out to people and try to get help in their job search or in hitting their sales targets or whatever else it may be. And then you've got those who are more proactive, who take a longer term view, who build up relationships, who pay things forward, who help other people, and then who have a much stronger network to turn to, when they actually need it.
And what kind of difference in results do you see in the careers of those two groups? What differences do you see between those who start tweeting when they need something and those who are online or going to events or showing up in person just regularly throughout a career?
I mean, it's huge. Someone who's only ever reaching out to you when they need help, when they're desperate, not having formed any relationship, with the person they're reaching out to, they'll tend to have their message fall on deaf ears, and so when they need that help the most, they find they haven't got it, and so those are the types of people who inevitably end up applying to lots and lots of jobs online because they're not having positions referred to them. They're not having, people recommending them, people looking out for opportunities for them. And then you've got those who, are just helping people and talking to people day in, day out. And they seem to have opportunities land on their lap, whether that be, sales leads or whether that be career opportunities. And the difference is just staggering.
So, Tony, what you're describing is often called paying it forward. It's this idea of doing favors for others without any expectation of getting anything in return. How do people do that? The people you see who pay it forward, what exactly are they doing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I would say paying it forward is certainly one key part of it. But even more simplistically, just engaging people in conversations and forming relationships, is absolutely key to everything in business. If you've got a big network of people who know, like, and trust you, then opportunities are going to come to you and business is going to be referred to you and you're going to be recommended for open positions when recruiters are looking for recommendations. Whereas if you're not doing those things, then that's going to pass you by. So, paying it forward specifically, obviously, we're talking about how can you help other people with no expectation of anything in return. At its simplest level on social media, I would say that is focusing on how you can help other people rather than always asking your network for something. So in industries far and wide now, you see people who are setting themselves up to try and be helpful to other people in their industry. So they're constantly sharing, insights, reports, interviews, things that are going to be really useful to other people in that sector, and really making themselves, a person of note in that industry. And that takes a bit of investment of time. There's no immediate obvious payback from that, but you tend to find if you do that, other people in the industry start paying attention to you. They start speaking highly of you. They start recommending you to others. And so at its simplest level, just sharing things that are valuable to other people instead of focusing on what it is that you want and promoting that that makes a huge difference. And then you can take it in stages from there. You can be ever more proactive. I put an update on LinkedIn just this last week saying, why don't you look through your connections on LinkedIn and find people that you can introduce to one another? If you know a business owner and you know someone who provides services to businesses that could be useful to that business owner, put those people in touch. They will forever be grateful that you've made that introduction to try and help both of them out with no expectation of anything in return. And, if you make that part of your weekly routine that you do things like that, guess who they're going to be thinking of and looking out for the next time there's an opportunity that comes their way that you could benefit from. So it is all about paying it forward. It's all about not having any expectation of there being anything by way of payback in return. But actually the reality is, it's only a matter of time before someone that you help turns around and does something unprompted for you in return.
So I can imagine listeners thinking to themselves right now, Tony, well, my day is full. I'm not sure how to get started or how much time this might take. What do you recommend for people who do want to get started, and what are some simple steps they might take on a daily basis, and how much time do you recommend people invest in this kind of approach, particularly online and using social media?
Well, let me answer that first of all with an example, and then I'll go into the specifics about times and tools and ideas. But I speak at lots of business schools across Europe, and some of the students that I speak with really take these ideas on board. And generally, when I visit them or speak to them later in the school year, they are the people who have got multiple job offers lined up from the types of companies that they were dreaming of securing a role with when they graduated. And they've done that by just investing a little bit of time each day in being active in the right groups, starting conversations with people, helping where they can. Obviously having, a LinkedIn profile that appeals to the types of employers that they ultimately want to join. But they're getting to the end of the school year and the job opportunities are coming to them. They're not having to find and apply for jobs. They're actually having people in their network reaching out to them saying, we're looking to hire someone just like you. Would you like me to put your resume forward? And if you compare and contrast that with the students who are struggling, they're the ones who haven't done any of that sort of thing during the course of the academic year. And so they are completely reliant on finding jobs that are being advertised online and applying to those. And obviously at that point, they're putting themselves in a situation where they're one of hundreds of applicants for a particular position. And the company may not even have, job advert respondents as their top source of candidates. They might only be even looking at those responses if their other approaches to recruiting fall through. So, I'd give that as an example. It's easy to think about this in terms of what's the cost of me doing this in terms of my time. But if you fast forward and think about it, well, what's the cost of me of not doing this? If I find myself in the situation of someone who's really struggling, rather than someone who's got these opportunities coming to them, then I would say, that the time cost feels a lot more palatable and a lot easier to find a way of accommodating in your day-to-day routine. So that would be an example I'd share. In terms of timescales, one of the things I'd really encourage you to do is decide, where you're going to be active, where you're going to try and help people, where you're going to try and have an impact, and maybe focus that on just one or two sites, and then work out ways that you can be super efficient. So, for example, if you're looking to share content for a particular audience, so you want to find things that are going to be valuable on certain themes, there are tools out there that you can use to find that content really quickly. There are tools out there that you can use to have that content shared from your social media accounts, automatically during the course of the week. And then you just check back in to see what interactions and interest that's produced. So a lot of social media is actually about investing that little bit of upfront time, setting yourself up to be, super effective on an ongoing basis. If you do that well, and one key thing I would stress here is getting the apps onto your smartphone. If you get the apps to do these things onto your smartphone, then you can use dead time. That time that you're waiting for a bus to arrive, or you're waiting in the canteen in line for your turn to be served. You can use that downtime to do something productive that's going to position you and help you, for years to come in your career. Yeah. So it's all about using, your time smartly and using tools to be as efficient and effective as possible. Does that make sense?
It does. It does, Tony. And I love the example that you shared about and the benefits. The why here. Why should people do this, and what might they see at the end of this process? And your tips about the how were very specific about how people might approach this on a daily basis. Can you talk a little bit about the strategy? For example, I'm guessing that the students that you saw at the end of the academic year who were weighing offers from different companies, they had a strategy when they thought about the kind of content they wanted to share, the places they wanted to hang out online, the conversations they wanted to be part of. What did those strategies look like so that people did use their time as effectively as possible?
That's a great question. And when I'm talking about getting results through social media specifically, I'm always really focused on two elements of that. The first is, what reach have you got to the types of people that you want to be having conversations with on social media? And so it's important to focus on which sites, which groups, which types of updates are going to give you the most reach to the types of people that you ultimately want to have those conversations with. And then the second part of that is focusing on conversion. So what can you do to make sure that as much of that reach as possible converts into conversations that ultimately go on to be beneficial? So if I give you, an example here with LinkedIn, what a lot of those students have done is firstly really focused on having a headline on their LinkedIn profile that draws attention to themselves, their expertise, their USP, what type of career path they're looking to pursue, and in the case of business school students, when it is that they're actually going to be graduating. And what that does, if you then become active on LinkedIn, whether that's you're appearing in people's homepage feed, or whether it's you're going and being active in specific niche groups for that industry, what it means is every time someone sees you on LinkedIn, they're reminded about what makes you special and what it is that you're ultimately looking to do when you graduate. So in those examples, the students would be talking about that they'd have a USP in their headline. So they might say they're trilingual. They might say they're a scholar student. They might say they're a top performing salesperson. Something that draws the attention of a potential employer or recruiter to be interested in their profile, rather than just saying that they're an MBA student. And then talking about what they are aspiring to achieve in their career. So maybe they're looking to pursue a career in digital marketing or in management consulting or whatever it might be. But then every single time their name and headline appears, when they're active in those LinkedIn groups, for example, everyone in those groups who sees them and who's interacting with them is reminded that that is the career direction they're looking to pursue when they graduate. And then in the case of a student that is graduating, obviously specifying the date when they will be graduating focuses people's mind on, when is the window of opportunity when we could hire this person. And so that's a great example of being active in those groups for that specific niche audience gives you the reach to a large number of the right people in that industry, and then having a headline that really causes people to want to click through and have a look at your profile and to constantly be reminded of when it is you're graduating and what type of role you're looking to secure that encourages the right kind of conversations to start. And the upshot of that for those types of students, they get throughout the school year loads of people in the industry looking to connect with them. So they're getting inbound requests for connections from people in the industry they want to get into. And then as the school year progresses, they start getting people approaching them saying, hey, I really enjoyed our conversations in that LinkedIn group. I wondered if you're still looking to get a role in our industry because we're actually hiring at the moment. Would you like me to put your resume forward for you?
I love those examples, Tony, and particularly your emphasis on being clear about what you offer and knowing as a candidate or a student or someone at any point in their career where you want to go. And what you're outlining is somewhat of a long game. It's happening. These conversations are happening over a year or two, perhaps, for graduate students. But the benefits are clearly there. Well, this is a terrific approach, and I appreciate you sharing it. Now, Tony, tell us what's next for you.
So the big focus for us at Social Harmac is really just scaling the business. Recruitment teams around the world love what we do. We're working on several hundred social media profiles right now. But what we're really focused on is multiplying that number significantly and making sure that we maintain the quality and the engagement that we achieve on our clients' accounts. So it's all about scaling and becoming more and more global for us.
And I know people can learn more about your company by visiting your website, social-hire.com. We'll include a link to your company website in the show notes, and people can also connect with you on Twitter or find you on LinkedIn. And again, we'll include URLs to both your Twitter and LinkedIn accounts in the show notes. Tony, thanks for being on our show today.
Absolutely been my pleasure. Thanks ever so much for having me.
And we're back in the Maxlist studio after my conversation with Tony. What are people's thoughts or reactions to the tips that Tony laid out?
Well, I really liked that he made a note about making sure to focus on where you want to spend your time and your energy. And I think that that's a really good note of, instead of trying to do it all, be really, hone in on specifically where you want to contribute your time, which I think is just a good note in general. But one thing...
I like that too.
Yeah.
You gotta focus.
You have to focus. Otherwise, you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to try to do too many things, and you're not going to be able to do as much as you want to. One thing I did want to just bring up really quickly is that I was hoping that he was going to talk a little bit more about how to, pay it forward and help other people. And maybe this is just my he might be helping people in a different way. But I felt like there was a lot of focus on how to be efficient in doing all of this stuff and connecting with people and doing sort of a collaborative job search that way. But there wasn't as much. I was hoping that there was going to be more about how to pay it forward and help people. Does that feel?
Yeah, like how to decide how to sort of give to people, like give to someone specifically.
Right. Rather than, I liked his notes about being really specific when you're on LinkedIn so that people can help you and know what you're asking for and what you are looking for so that they can be watching for opportunities. I think that that's really important. But I think, and maybe this is just my expectations versus reality sort of situation, where I was thinking that there was going to be a little bit more of how to do some hands-on contributing with individuals during the job search. Yeah. And I was hoping that he would talk a little bit more about that.
Well, sometimes it's hard because of the limited amount of time. One,
of course.
Example that he shared in the blog post that I read before that he wrote about this was, if you get if you're approached about a job or a piece of business and it's not right for your company or for you personally, tell others about it or make referrals. And that's a specific way you can do favors for others without expecting to get anything in return.
Well, and I also think when you're talking about like your activity on LinkedIn or other social media channels, like implicit in that is that you're sharing content of value that's going to make other people's lives easier, better, more enjoyable, more joyful, things like that. As opposed to folks who go online and only use social media to post, bachelor updates or other stuff.
For their own gains. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you can be helping other people if you're constructively adding to conversations and dialogues that are going on online and on social media. And so it's not as hands-on maybe as you were thinking, Jessica, but I think there is an element there of like helping other people out. But you just have to like kind of focus on value first and any benefit to you being way down the road. Absolutely.
No, I thought he laid it out really well in that. I think it was expectations versus reality of what Pay It Forward evokes for me was just a little bit more of that concrete steps. But I think that these are all really good. And like you mentioned, Mac, that it's sort of a long game or, laying the groundwork for long-term success.
Just one more note on that, though.
Yeah.
I think that it's also important to have like more robust relationships with the people in your network.
That's what I was kind of touching upon is that I wanted it to be more of the relationship building and more of the sort of like give and take that way. So say more about what
I think it's really it's about sort of like a lot of times I think about the people in my network and it's like sometimes it's just like a super acquaintance level person. I don't necessarily know what they need and I need to sort of have those conversations, whether it's offline, in person, or sort of like messaging them, reaching out, being like, hey, where are you at in your career? Like that takes some on the ground work to build those relationships. But once you have those and you're sort of ongoing understanding people and like sort of like growing, deepening that relationship, it's a lot easier to, when you do see that opportunity, to know who's going to need it, who's going to appreciate it.
That's a really good note.
Yeah, and I think you both are emphasizing another point here inadvertently, but that we have different levels of relationships professionally.
Right.
And some people you can touch, and it's a very weak connection through social media, but you can reach out to large numbers of people. And I think what I liked about Tony's, my conversation with Tony was to your point, Jessica, he talked about the strategy behind it. It's not just about the number of tweets or LinkedIn posts. It's where do you want to be? What do you offer? What difference can you make? And if you do it efficiently, you can reach large numbers of people. But to your point, Becky, you're going to have a lot of different quality of relationships professionally. So, and each one is going to require maybe a different approach depending on the level. Well, thank you all for your comments. And thank you, Tony, for joining us this week. And thank you, our listeners, for downloading today's episode of Find Your Dream Job. If you like what you hear, please sign up for our free weekly newsletter. In every issue, we give you the key points of that week's show. And we also include links to all the resources mentioned. And you get a transcript of the full episode. Subscribe to the newsletter now, and we'll send you our new guide, the Top Career Podcasts of 2017. Discover all the podcasts that can help you find a great job and get the career you want. Get your free newsletter and podcast guide today. Go to maxlist.org/topcareerpodcasts2017. And join us next Wednesday when our special guest will be Mitch Matthews. He'll explain why your first gig shouldn't be a dream job. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.